Roger Pont l'Evêque told Henry that he would have no peace as long as Thomas lived. Henry burst into one of his wild rages and used those fateful words which we've heard so often, about the cowards and sluggards who ate his bread but dared not free him from this turbulent priest. The knights tried to drag Thomas from the church, fearing at first to kill him in the consecrated precincts of the cathedral. But he was too strong for them. He caught Tracy by the coat of mail and flung him down on the pavement. Fitzurse and the others then struck at his head. Grim, with upraised arm, caught one of the blows, his arm being nearly severed. "I commend myself," said Thomas, "to God, to Our Lady, to St. Alphege, and to St. Denis." They struck again, and a sword cut took off the top of the crown of his head. Covered with blood, he fell on his knees and elbows in front of the altar of St. Benedict, saying, "Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." And as he lay there, Grim, who had fallen not far from him, caught the murmur, "For the name of Jesus and for the defense of his church, I am ready to die." Another tremendous blow completely severed the crown from his skull, the sword being shattered on the pavement. A miscreant named Hugh of Horsey, who was with the knights, then put the point of his sword into the martyr's head and scattered his brains on the floor of the chapel. "Let us go," they said to one another. "The traitor is dead. He will arise no more." They rushed from the cathedral, shouting their watchword, "King's men, King's men." As the murderers fled from Canterbury, their saddlebags crammed with looted treasure, a great storm broke out over the city. The sky over the desecrated cathedral turned purple as the terrified townspeople crept there to dip fragments of cloth in the blood of the martyr. That night the monks kept vigil around the martyr's body, and on the morrow they prepared it for burial. Robert of Merton then showed them the cowl and the hair shirt next to the skin, and they beheld upon the body the evidence of ceaseless austerities. The monks realized that in that moment the hidden life that had lain concealed behind the imposing exterior, and they broke out into loud cries, "He was a true monk, he was a true monk," and they insisted that Thomas was a saint and a martyr. The body was hastily buried in the crypt for fear of profanation by the de Brocs and their followers, and the crypt was kept closed. But the people came in their thousands, year after year, century after century. Miracles of healing began within 3 days. They continued with frequency and were soon reported to every part of England. Thus, at the age of 53, perished this extraordinary man, a martyr to his duty, the preservation of the freedom of the Church. The moment of his death was the triumph of his cause. His personal virtues and exalted station, the dignity and composure with which he met his fate, the sacredness of the place where the murder was perpetrated, all contributed to inspire men with revulsion for his enemies and veneration for his character. On February the 21st, 1173, within only 2 years and 2 months of the memorable day, St. Thomas was canonized by Pope Alexander III. He was indeed a confessor by his life and a martyr by his death. Already he had become the real patron saint of the English people, and his fame spread to the whole confines of the civilized world. A good deal that Henry had contended for ultimately became part of the law and practice of the realm, though in less objectionable form. But 2 things of the greatest value were definitely secured by the efforts of St. Thomas, and remained untouched until the Reformation: the all-important right of appeal to Rome, and a modified form of the privilegium fori, commonly known as benefit of clergy. By his death in defense of the liberties of the Church, St. Thomas gained immediate victory. The dreadful deed had sent a chill of horror through Christendom. Appalled at the consequences of his outburst, Henry II, on hearing the dread news, had shut himself up in his castle at Argentan, and for weeks would give no man audience. But at length he had to settle with the Holy See. On May the 22nd, 1172, he knelt in Avranches Cathedral before legates of the Pope and swore that he had not commanded or willed the death of St. Thomas, that he would take the cross for 3 years
and perform such other penance as might be imposed upon him, that he would not hinder appeals to Rome, or depart from his spiritual allegiance to the Holy See, and that he would renounce any customs that he himself had introduced. 2 years later, when beset by foes, foreign and domestic, and in danger of losing his throne, Henry found it expedient to undergo the humiliation of a prolonged public penance at the martyr's shrine. That shrine became the richest and most magnificent in Christendom, and to it came pilgrims, not for a season or for a generation, but for a century after century, until the Reformation. When the Reformation came, the cultus of St. Thomas of Canterbury was one of the first things to be attacked. In 1538, Henry VIII issued a proclamation containing these words: "From henceforth the said Thomas Becket shall not be esteemed, named, reputed, nor called a saint, but Bishop Becket. And his images and pictures throughout the whole realm shall be put down and avoided out of all churches, chapels, and all other places. And that henceforth the days used to be a festival in his name shall not be observed, nor the service, office, antiphons, collects, and prayers in his name read, but erased and put out of all the books." First of all, the feast of the solemn translation of the relics, which dated from July the 7th, 1220, was abolished. Then the actual feast of the martyrdom, December the 29th. Then came the deletion of his name from the liturgy, and the unsparing destruction of his image and likeness, whether on vellum or in wood, stone, or painted glass. It was a sure instinct that moved Henry VIII to declare war on the name and fame of the false knave and traitor Becket, as he called the saint. From the shrine of St. Thomas, whole wagon loads of gold, silver, jewels, and precious hangings were carted away to the king's treasury, while the relics of the saint were burned. The most magnificent jewel then known, the great ruby of France, given to the shrine by the French king who was the saint's contemporary, Henry VIII took for himself. Set in a ring, it thenceforth graced his sacrilegious hands. As long as England remained a Catholic country, St. Thomas the Martyr was the object of deep veneration. And when at last his shrine was cast down and his cultus proscribed, even the humblest folk understood clearly that a great and evil change had come upon their country. The collect for the feast of St. Thomas on the 29th of December is one which every Catholic could pray each day with fervour. O God, for whose church the glorious Bishop Thomas fell by the swords of the wicked, grant, we beseech thee, that all who implore his help may obtain a salutary answer to their petitions.